She arrived ready to confess her feelings, and found the Alpha King with someone else. 1. A true real-life story. Part 1. Third person. Lena had been standing at her window for almost an hour, just staring at the moon. It was full that night. Big and silver and impossibly bright. The kind of moon that made the whole palace glow like it was made of glass. She watched it rise above the trees, above the stone towers, until it sat right there in the middle of the sky, looking back at her like it was waiting for something too. She had made a decision. Tonight was the night she was going to tell him. Lena let out a slow breath and turned away from the window. She looked at her reflection in the small mirror by the door. Dark eyes, straight shoulders, a face that never gave too much away. She had trained it that way. She had been the Alpha King's royal advisor for almost 3 years. 3 years of council meetings, and border reports, and long evenings going over strategy by candlelight. 3 years of sitting close enough to hear him breathe, and never once saying the one thing she actually wanted to say. She was tired of carrying it alone. The confession had been sitting inside her chest for months, maybe longer if she was honest with herself. She had practiced it so many times that the words felt worn smooth, like a stone she had turned over and over in her hands. She wasn't going to make it dramatic. She wasn't going to cry. She was just going to walk up to him, look him in the eye, and tell him the truth. Whatever happened after that, she would deal with it. At least she would know. She smoothed her jacket, picked up the border report she had finished that afternoon. A real report, not an excuse. She had actually finished it, and walked out the door. The palace corridors were quiet at that hour. Most of the pack had already settled in for the night. A few guards nodded at her as she passed. They all knew her face. She had been here long enough that no one questioned why she moved through the halls at night. She was trusted. She was reliable. She was the Alpha King's human. That was how they said it. Not unkindly, just as a fact. His human advisor. The one who made sense of things he didn't have patience for. She liked that she had earned that. She liked that she had built something real here. Something that wasn't just about who she was to him privately, inside her own heart. She turned down the long corridor that led to his chambers. Torches burned low on the walls, throwing orange shadows across the stone floor. Her footsteps were soft, her heartbeat was not. She almost turned back at the second corner. She stopped walking, stood there for a moment, and told herself that if she didn't do this tonight, she never would. She had been saying not tonight for 8 months. 8 months was enough. She kept walking. His chamber doors were dark wood, tall, carved with the royal wolf crest. She had stood outside these doors 100 times. She reached for the handle, and stopped. She heard something. Laughter, a woman's laughter, low and easy, drifting out through the gap under the door. The kind of laughter that doesn't need to perform anything. The kind that's comfortable. The kind that says, I belong here. Lena's hand stayed on the iron handle. She stood very still. Her brain offered her several reasonable explanations in quick succession. A cousin, a council member, a pack sister stopping by to discuss something official. She listened to all of them. She believed none of them. But she pushed the door open anyway, because some part of her still needed to see. The room was lit by moonlight and low candles. It was a large room, as the Alpha King's chambers always were. Stone walls, tall windows, the kind of quiet that usually felt settled and cold. But tonight, it felt occupied in a way Lena wasn't prepared for. He was standing by the far window, King Calum Drake. Silver eyes, dark hair, a face that most people found difficult to read. Lena had always been able to read it, or so she had thought. He was tall, still in the day's formal jacket, not yet at rest, which meant the evening hadn't wound down the way she'd assumed it had. The woman beside him was a she-wolf, named Serena Voss. Lena knew who she was. Everyone in the palace knew who she was. A high-ranking member of a neighboring wolf clan, politically important, famously beautiful, and very aware of both. She was standing close to Calum, one hand resting lightly on his forearm, her silk dress catching the candlelight. She was laughing at something he had just said. He wasn't laughing back, but the corner of his mouth had moved, which for Calum was practically the same thing. The whole scene lasted maybe 2 seconds before anyone reacted. Then all 3 of them were looking at each other. Lena felt the words she had practiced. All of them, every single one, quietly leave her body. Not dramatically, not like a crash, more like air going out of a window that had been left open too long. They were simply gone. What stayed was something else. Something tight and sharp that she pushed, immediately and firmly, somewhere below her ribs where she could deal with it later. She straightened. She cleared her throat. "My lord," she said. Her voice was even. She was proud of that. "I apologize for interrupting. I had the border report ready, but it can wait until the morning briefing. I'll leave it with your guard." Calum's eyes were already on her. He hadn't moved. But something in his expression shifted. Fast. Almost invisible. The way things shift on his face when he's processing something he didn't expect. He was reading her. She knew he was reading her. He read people the same way he read battlefield maps. Quickly, thoroughly, looking for the thing that didn't quite line up. She kept her face exactly as she needed it to be. Neutral. Professional. Fine. Serena stepped forward before Calum could speak. "Oh, don't leave on my account," she said warmly, her smile wide and easy. "Calum speaks of you often, actually. His indispensable human." She said the word human, the way you'd place a piece on a game board. Gently, deliberately, right where it would do the most damage without looking like she'd meant to. Lena smiled back. It was a clean smile, the kind she had built over years of sitting in rooms where the power didn't belong to her. "It's kind of him to say so," she replied. "Enjoy your evening." She looked at Calum once more. He had taken one step forward, just one. She was already stepping back. She bowed slightly and left. The corridor outside swallowed her up, and she walked quickly, not running, never running, not until she had turned 3 full corners and was standing in a part of the palace where no one would see her. Then she stopped. She pressed her back against the cold stone wall and just stood there, breathing. She didn't cry. She wasn't the kind of person who cried in palace corridors. She was the kind of person who filed things away, who sorted through feelings the way she sorted through reports. Carefully, efficiently, later. She was very good at later, but she stood against that wall for longer than she should have. The stone was cold through her jacket. The torch at the end of the hall flickered. Somewhere above her the moon was still full and bright, completely unbothered. She had been so ready. She thought about that. She had walked those corridors with her heart in her hands, held out like an offering, and she had arrived 3 minutes too late to give it to anyone. Or maybe not too late, maybe right on time to understand something she should have understood sooner. She picked herself up. She went back to her room. She put the border report on her desk for the morning. She went to bed. She did not sleep. Calum did not sleep either. Serena had left within the hour. The meeting between them had been political, a discussion of territory terms that neither pack wanted to put in writing yet. He had not invited warmth. She had offered it anyway, the way she offered everything, like a card played face up on the table so you could see exactly what she was doing, but still somehow had trouble saying no. He had been about to wrap things up when the door opened. He had seen Lena's face for exactly 1 second before she locked it down. 1 second. But Calum had spent his whole life learning how to read things in very small windows of time, and 1 second was enough. He had seen what she came to say, and he had watched her decide, in real time, right in front of him, not to say it. She had turned it off like a light. He stood at the window, long after the candles burned low, looking out at the same moon she had been watching from her room an hour before, though neither of them knew that. He wasn't a man who spent much time on feelings, his own or anyone else's. He had always considered that a strength. Right now it felt less like a strength. Something had shifted tonight, something small and quiet, and probably permanent. She had fresh notes on 2 additional matters that had come through overnight. She was prepared. She was always prepared. It was the thing she was best at. The council filed in. Calum entered last, the way he always did. He sat across from her, and she looked at him, and then looked back at her notes, and that was that. They went through the agenda. She spoke when it was her turn to speak, clearly and precisely, the same as always. He asked questions. She answered them. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. Except that she didn't quite meet his eyes the way she used to. He noticed. When the others had gone, he said her name. Lena. She paused at the door. Turned. Her expression was careful, the most careful thing in the room. He looked at her for a moment. There were things he could have said. He was aware of them. He chose none of them. The report was good, he said. Thorough. Well done. Thank you, my lord. She nodded once. She left. He stayed at the table a little longer than usual, looking at the door she had just walked through. He had tracked enemies through forests at night. He had read battlefields in the dark and known which way things would go before they went that way. He was not a man who missed things, but he was starting to understand that there was a difference between seeing something and actually doing something about it while you still could.